Here it is, near the end of February, a nice cold day in Ontario. I thought I'd go to my log pile, grab a small to medium sized log and see if I can turn a live edge bowl from it, right from start to finish. Yikes! It's cold out here. I better get into that shop quickly. Hi, welcome to my channel. Today we're going to try to turn a bowl from a log. Sometimes you get just a hunk of log like this and you don't know what to do with it. And the pith is running right through the center, so you're thinking, well, I can't really make a bowl out of it. But if you turn it thin enough, you can get away with leaving the pith in it. Maybe put a bit of CA glue there and turn it nice and thin. So this is the general shape that the bowl is going to take right here. With live edge. I'm not sure if the bark is going to stay on or not. This piece of wood was cut 2 or 3 months ago, and it's been out in the winter, so it's still very relatively wet. Okay. I'm just taking the bark off with a chisel and a hammer, just in the areas where I'm going to be able to turn it between centers. You could also just take a spade drill and drill a bit of a hole there as well. That's another way to get the bark out of that area. Now here I'm taking the time to make sure that the bark is fairly well balanced so that it comes up at the same height all the way around the piece. And I just keep moving the tailstock support until it's where I want it. I'm going to be roughing this piece out, and this is a spindle roughing gouge, but of course you never use a spindle roughing gouge on bowl work. This is side grain. Spindle roughing gouges are only to be used for spindle work. So here you would use a bowl gouge. This is a 5/8 inch bowl gouge, which will be just fine for roughing out my piece. Okay, let's have some fun. I've started with a series of push cuts just to get the general shape going. And I've done some here towards the center to establish where the tenon will be. Here I also did a few pull cuts as well. Now I'm back into push cuts. Here's a side view, and you can see the form starting to take shape. I'm continuing to make push cuts with my 5/8 inch bowl gouge. I think I have a few flat spots left on the outer edge. So I'll have to keep cutting until I get the shape refined, all the flat spots out of it. I'm looking for a nice continuous curve from the base right out to the outer edge. I'm getting the tenon sized up to final size to work with the chuck that I'm going to use to mount the bowl. I'm using the negative rake shear scraper to take off any little high ridges that I was not able to get with the gouge. This will give me my final surface. I don't really want to come back to this surface again after I turn it in the chuck. I've remounted the piece onto a chuck, and now I'm going to start cutting out the inside with my 5/8 inch bowl gouge. You'll notice I've left the tailstock here for support as long as possible, and I will keep doing that until I need to make the final cuts in the middle, and then I will remove the tailstock at that point. So what I'm trying to get here is a piece from start to finish that I can finish in one turning. To do this, I'm going to have to turn it quite thin, and I'm turning it in stages, leaving support in the center and just working on the first 2 or 3 inches at a time. Now here I've gone to a 1/2 inch bowl gouge, freshly sharpened, and I'm making a final cut to get a nice thin wall. I'm after something around 3/16 or less. This will give me best chance of it not cracking while it's drying. With the first few inches completed, I'm now moving down to the next stage, the next 2 or 3 inches. And I will never go back to those first few inches that I've turned, because they are going to move now as I relieve stresses in the inside of the bowl. I've continued this process, just working further and further into the bowl. With the bark edge, I can gauge the thickness by just looking at the bark and using my fingers. As I get deeper though, you can see here I've had to use calipers, and I really like these Andre Martel calipers. They are just fabulous. Now I'm finishing the bottom of the bowl, and I like to use a bottoming bowl gouge. It's sharpened at a 60-degree angle with much higher sides, as you can see. This is really good to clean off the bottom of your bowl. The piece is totally finished now. I usually maybe put a bag over this piece and wait overnight and then sand it the next day. Or if it's dry enough, I'll start sanding right away. I've finished the sanding. You can see the piece is still wet and quite flexible. I've turned it to just less than 3/16 all the way through. And now I have to remove the bottom. So I've turned it around and just put it in a jam chuck. Well, the piece is all finished now. Turned it nice and thin. It's still a little bit wet. I just finished the bottom. And even though it's a little bit wet, it's only been a few days, I think I'm going to put a finish on it, general salad bowl finish. And if it warps a little bit afterwards, I can always true up the bottom. I think I'm pretty happy with it. Lots of work, but it's an interesting piece.